Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's TP Talks webinar. I am joined today by Melissa O'Keefe, Global Head of Customer Success with Redbubble. Today, Melissa will provide insights on meeting customer expectations in a high-growth environment, creating a compelling case for partnering, and embracing digital transformation. But first, I'm your moderator for today. I'm Rebecca Brown, EVP and Customer Experience Strategist with Teleperformance. Before we begin, I need to cover a few housekeeping items. First, there are several related resources available for you to download in the Resources widget to the right of your screen. Second, this webinar is designed to be interactive. You will see multiple icons at the bottom of your console. If you have questions, as we'd love for you to interact with us, please submit your questions in the Q&A window on the left of your screen. Do this anytime during the conversation, and we will address them during our designated Q&A session toward the end. Third, should you have any technical issues, please click on the Help widget. It's the box that looks like a question mark. And finally, if you'd like to reach us, please use the email widget. First and foremost, what is TP Talks? As curators of the customer experience, we are pleased to bring you this series of webinars called TP Talks. TP Talks is packaged in 30-minute bite-sized webinar segments and designed to help you as curators of customer experience at your companies to help you learn from best practices, big trends, innovations, and real-world success stories from people like yourselves. Teleperformance has worked diligently with our clients to curate this content for you, and there are several of these available online. You can access them in the Resource widget to the right of your screen. Your host for today is Teleperformance. Teleperformance has been serving leading industry brands for almost 4 decades with a multitude of services, including customer care, technical support, customer acquisition, digital solutions, analytics, back office, and other specialized services to ensure consistent and positive customer interactions. In all of these areas, Teleperformance is committed to partnering with our clients to find innovative ways to manage obstacles and succeed. This webinar is a reflection on our commitment to that very concept. We are particularly proud of the awards we win and the recognition we get from our analysts and by many of our clients as well for the ability to help curate their customer experience, making a palpable difference to their brands as a manifestation of our mission. And finally, it is my great pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, Melissa O'Keefe, who is the Global Head of Customer Success at Redbubble. In her role, she is responsible for global operations, customer support, and customer experience. Melissa has worked in multiple global environments ranging from e-commerce and online marketplaces to high-tech and large global manufacturing operations. Today, she's going to talk about her approach and strategy to building a successful customer service organization at Redbubble. So without further ado, I give you Melissa O'Keefe.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. That was a great introduction, and I've loved working with you over the years, so I'm really happy to be here. And thank you to Srini and all of Teleperformance for the opportunity today. Before we start, I thought I would share a little bit about Redbubble and our mission. We're an incredible online marketplace for artists, allowing artists, members, and buyers to come together and bring more creativity into the world. We're headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, and have offices in San Francisco, California, and Berlin, Germany. Over 700,000 artists post their work on Redbubble. I think it's important, both of course because I think it's an amazing company, but also to set the context that we are a later stage startup, and the ability to focus on the top line growth is quite impactful and serious for our state of business. Clearly, any of us who are in the service industry have a responsibility to take care of our customers, but it's also to improve service, decrease costs, and add value back to the business through insights that improve that end-to-end customer experience. And it's a true challenge when you do not have those deep pockets or an unending lineup of engineers or product managers to help you deliver those improvements. So in my experience at Redbubble, it's really been about creative problem solving and delivering on promises to the customer, the business, the people on your team, and of course shareholders if you're a public company. So what is my go-to approach? It is the gap analysis. And I know that's not extremely complicated or fancy, and it's exactly why I love it. Running gap analysis is such a fantastic way to quickly assess what's needed to move forward and to achieve your commitments and objectives. And it can be applied to so many elements, from setting a business strategy to operating objectives or processes and procedures, and even taking a look at your organization structure and your people skills. It's really the ability to take a look at where am I today, where do I need to go, and what are all the critical actions and steps I need to get there to bridge that gap and achieve all the objectives I'm held accountable to achieving. So where do you start? It's a big question, right? I have found in my own experience, it's been the most fruitful to start at the beginning. And for me, the beginning has always been, what is the objective, mission, and vision of the organization? It's the true, what am I trying to achieve, and what is the organization trying to achieve? Then I take a look at the how. How do we want to go about it? And those are the cultural norms and values, the vocabulary, and the behaviors. Then you can take a look at, all right, if I look across the spectrum, who are the partners, the customers, the suppliers, and what do I know about them? Next, it's really helpful to take a look, or an inventory, or a SWOT analysis for those of you who use those, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the business, and understand where your organization or business is along the lines of the business maturity cycle, anywhere from development to introduction, growth, maturity, and even decline, because it really helps you set the context and tone for the focus of both your initiatives as well as how you help the organization. And of course, it's important to know your reputation, not only out in your own marketplace and with your customers, but also with your internal partners as well as vendors and other suppliers who work with you. So after you have a really solid understanding of your own evaluation of the business and strategies, then you can take a look at where is your own organization today. Really take a hard look in the mirror. And do you understand in detail how your function's performing against expectations? And that can be a really scary thing to look at because, of course, nobody wants to fail. But it's really good to understand the reality of where you stand. What's your reputation? Are you at the table, or do you find out information as an afterthought, sometimes through your customers? Are you set up to scale and have flexibility to grow? And how do you really manage and deliver on those financial obligations in your budget? Essentially, it's really knowing where you stand in a gap analysis across what your organization, your customers, and your team need you to deliver, and where you stand today. And you know what? You don't have to be perfect. This is about understanding where you are now so you can set the right direction for the future. What customers say versus what they need may be different. I guess it's a little bit like the Rolling Stones song, but I found this to be very true. When I started at Redbubble, a quick story, I started in a human resources capacity. The person who was running customer service ended up taking another role 2 weeks before the holiday. So I was really along for the ride. Well, after the holiday season, of course, we ran a retrospective and tried to understand what worked and didn't work for the next planning session. I asked one of the people on my team to run a word cloud and pull in all of the requests from customers so we could see very quickly what they were asking for and where we were creating problems. And loud and clear, almost every single word cloud element was shouting out for us to add a telephone number, to add a phone. We can't find your phone. Where's your phone? And what I really understood after looking at the data is that customers were not asking for a phone number. They were asking us to respond quicker, because as painful as it is for me to tell you this, it took us 3 days over email to respond to customers right at the holiday season. So you can imagine how difficult that was and panicking for customers, and that's why they were asking us for a phone number. So when you actually are able to listen to the pain points of customers and you understand what's good for your business, you can deliver the right solution that helps resolve the customer problem or cry, as well as do what's right for your business. And just so you know,
Melissa,
in our case, we ended up,
That's a great example. I'm wondering, though, once you kind of define what customers actually are asking for, what they need, how do you go about closing that gap and accomplishing what you're setting out to do?
Right. Well, that's a good question, and it could be a very big answer. But one of the most critical, I guess, strategies I have found is to develop partnerships. And most of the time, either at work or in life, it's really hard to get from A to Z without help. And that's where, for me, I found partnerships come into play internally as well as externally. And they're critical alliances to help achieve a project or even advance your organization. And I know it may seem obvious to say this, but I just want to say it because I found it to be so true. Making sure that the partnerships are good for all parties and ensuring a foundation based on collaboration, respect, and an understanding of each objective is really critical for allowing a scalable foundation for the future. And it's really not about what's in it for me. It's really about how to create a win-win approach. And I also think it's easy for leaders to feel like they have to do it all, but it's really not true. Partnerships are just another way to scale bodies of work and align that work to specialists and experts in their field. So for me, as I was thinking about partnerships, I call this the Goldilocks experience because, to be honest, this is exactly how I felt. When we started to outsource, so I told you about that horrific 3-day wait period for customers, I knew we had to figure out a way to scale. And at that time, I had 28 internal agents all doing the exact same job, which clearly didn't work. So I set out to find an outsourced partner. And to be honest, the company I was working with, Redbubble, that executives had never outsourced before. There was a lot of trepidation about going forward and a lot of concern we would lose our brand. So I wanted to start small. And to me, that meant, under 50 agents. In fact, it was probably 25 at the time. And I started to interview different organizations and potential partners. And I really found that most of the companies were just not the right fit. Some were too big, and it was very evident we would get lost in the shuffle. And others were too small and couldn't scale with us as fast as we were growing. And we actually did partner with one company in the technology space where that happened, and it was very, very painful. So it wasn't until, actually, Rebecca, I had a referral from a trusted colleague we both know. And I remember saying to you, especially after going through the experiences I had, I knew I wanted the benefit of Teleperformance's or a large company's technology, data, global infrastructure, and experience, but I absolutely wanted to be treated like a boutique partner and have somebody who would grow with us over time on our timeline. And I'm really happy to say this has been a true perfect match. Now I've been able to promote and restructure my internal team and develop my strongest performers and outsource not only the frontline work to Teleperformance, but over time we've got these amazing specialty teams, which has been a win-win for both Redbubble as well as Guyana and Jamaica, where we have our site locations. And those teams are also able to grow and develop alongside Redbubble.
So Melissa, I still remember to this day that very first phone call that we had, and you did such a good job just explaining in detail exactly what Redbubble was looking for. And I was able to take that information away, take that back internally, and look across our vast global footprint, and really come back with some strong recommendations on what locations we thought made the most sense for Redbubble. And a big piece of that was finding the right cultural match, right? So I know one question or one concern that a lot of companies feel when they're thinking about outsourcing is how do you make sure that you don't lose your culture when you're starting to work with a partner?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and culture isn't just important because of the way the company feels. It is the brand. It is the statement of the company. And of course, anyone who has a problem is contacting the customer service organization, and that is a representation of the brand. So I completely get it. And I went through that too, so I can relate. Well, my approach was, and again, I come from really everything from the standpoint that we're all human, right? And people are people, and organizations are a product of those people and obviously the vision and direction of that organization. So I try to start with what is the need, and not just the skills and abilities, just like you would do a job position, right? If you were thinking about interviewing for a role, you think about what are the key components I need for this position, what are the technical skills, what are the interpersonal skills, what's the cultural fit, what would that match look like, and prioritize everything so that you know what your go and no-go criteria is. And that's really what I did, is we started mapping out and talking to not just other companies, but even the options that you had given us. We had interviews with different groups across teleperformance until we found the right fit. And I knew the right fit because some of the language was the same, the approach to problem solving was the same, the ability to be frank and talk through issues as they arise, because that will happen, and not take it personally, but be very, very focused on how to initiate the resolution. I think those were all really important elements to making sure we had the potential to line up. And then after we decided to work with, well, we started with Kiana, as you know, we really work at it every single day and every year. So we have an annual review where we look at performance metrics, but we also measure how did we do along the lines of culture and voice and brand. And we have particular trainings that we present and have as part of the orientation. And we also, thanks to the willingness of Teleperformance, we reorganized the entire location where our team sits, and it's completely branded as Redbubble, the way the desks are organized, the way the day flows, the way the area is decorated. It's almost as if you walk out of Redbubble San Francisco and walk into Jamaica or walk into Guyana, and you still feel like you're in Redbubble. But we have to work at it, right? It's a daily process.
Another key, Melissa, I think was we sent a lot of resources from Guyana and Jamaica to San Francisco to really get a feel for what your culture was firsthand, and then vice versa. You sent a lot of resources to our locations to make sure that we were bringing that culture back in the right way.
Yep, absolutely. And for any of you like us who are on a very, very tight budget, right? We really were very thoughtful about who went and what was the purpose. And I sent people who had been on the line in Redbubble and had been moved up and promoted into positions, because they could talk not only about the culture, but they could talk from the point of the agent's experience. So I think it really helped infuse how you translate helping a customer who's frustrated, for example, in a voice and tone that is completely Redbubble. Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to just share is at least how I have thought about creating a roadmap. And this doesn't necessarily have to be just a roadmap for projects, but it's in my own mind, and I just found it to be helpful to think about how everything I'm trying to do aligns, because ultimately you need to ask, or you may be asking for something, be it financial support, resources. You may be wanting to get executive support for a direction or strategy you want to change. So this is just, for me, a helpful visual to think about, all right, what's the company going after in terms of the vision and the values? What's important to my boss and the executives? What am I trying to achieve for my own organization, and in this case, obviously, for the customer experience and for our partnerships? And how does that align with other teams who may be able to work with me internally to the company as well as externally? And then I put my plan together. And my plan is really based on what is it that I'm asking for? And again, this can be a new software system. It can be a new org structure change you want to make. It could be a redirect with partnerships. It really can be any approach that you need to take to ensure you're achieving your objectives. So clearly, you probably won't talk about all of those steps in the roadmap, but in your own mind, if you can be really clear, it helps put together your plan. What are you trying to do? Who's your audience? Have you done your gap analysis? How long is it going to take? And what's that return on investment? So that when you go to an executive or you go to a committee or whatever, you set your budget, you're able to really clearly lay out what you're trying to do in the cost-benefit analysis, as well as what's the impact, not just, again, for your own organization and customers, but also for the business and tying it right back to all the key business objectives. And I have found doing that, I've had many more yeses than I have nos, even as I push the boundaries and start to do things in the organization that have never been done, which can be a little bit scary. So when I can tie what I'm trying to accomplish back to what the business or organization is trying to accomplish, I've been much more successful in getting the yes.
So Melissa, we actually have been receiving some questions from the audience, and there's one that I think would fit really well here that I'll go ahead and ask. And that is, how do you approach partnering with other parts of your business where e-commerce and customer service intersect, but department objectives might not be completely aligned?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Well, and it's true, right? Because everybody has their own objectives they're going after. So every function or department has a purpose, and they do have their own goals they're trying to go after and achieve. But what I have found is at some point there is most likely a point of intersection where there are common goals or common opportunities for alignment. And again, if you take everything back to what's the objective of the business, you can trace back opportunities that will either, let's say in our case, improve the service for customers, decrease costs for the company, and improve that end-to-end experience, which is really what we're trying to drive, right? Because we want more customers to come back. We want people to advocate for us out in the marketplace. We want our artists to be happy and to create more work. So I actually have an experience that I can share with you, and it's around sizing. And for us, what sizing really means, because some of our product line includes clothing, we have fulfillers or manufacturers we work with around the globe, and they use different products. So today, when customers are on our site selecting sizing for their clothing, they may buy a t-shirt in a medium, and then tomorrow buy a sweatshirt in a medium, and you know what? They don't fit the same. So it can be a very, very painful experience for customers. Obviously, it's awful to have to return a product and, you know, either get your money back or work on another option. And it's actually costing the company money. So I knew all of this. I had a few ideas and talked to a few people across the company, but frankly, working on sizing was so big, it affected legal and finance, multiple engineering teams, and people had their own agendas. So it just was acknowledged as a very important problem, but not important enough to drop everything else and make it a priority. So it dawned on me that probably I hadn't done a very good job of explaining the situation and selling and sharing a story. So what I did, which has worked in this company as well as other organizations for me, even when I was in human resources, is I did my own quick back of the napkin assessment. Based on what I know, is this problem going to be big enough to matter? So I know our threshold for engineering support, and I was able to take a look at what we were spending in compensation, meaning refunds, reprints, returns, coupons, as well as agent time. And that number alone was big enough to be a compelling story, in quote, there. So then I went out to find partners across the organization who I knew were either working on sizing on their own or had a compelling reason to focus on sizing because it was part of their function. So that's our customer user experience team, our commercial product team, our quality team, other operational teams. And we came together, we had a meeting, we did a large process map about the customer journey, identified key pain points, brainstormed all the issues and trends, and we were able to actually solidify 2 main areas of focus where customers have difficulty. And I don't mind sharing that. So that's either the information on our site is omitted and they can't find it, or it's difficult to understand. And from there, we were able to identify low-hanging fruit opportunities as well as more impactful but long-term projects. We were able to put some numbers to it, identify and talk in the language of our engineering teams and our finance teams. So we identified the cost of this work as a % of our sales, projected it out based on growth rates. And now, because we had this cross-functional alignment and we're able to tie it back to some of the initiatives that we're working through the objectives of the company, we have our engineering and product teams very seriously looking at sizing as a committed roadmap item. And even our executive team is really supportive. When will that happen? I don't know, but I'm very, very thrilled that it's been taken seriously. It's actually on the agenda as a critical item to review and eventually resolve. And I honestly don't think that would have happened without, well, fortitude, I would say, but also collaboration, storytelling, and data-centric partnership. And that's both in the numbers as well as the customer pain points and explaining the impact to customers. Sorry about that, my computer just froze up. The other example I can share with you is a little bit different, and this is back when we started using Zendesk, which is for us, has been a phenomenal tool. And when we launched it, there were quite a few improvements we needed to make on our end, not the Zendesk end. And we didn't have the engineering, of course, resources allocated to help us. And it certainly wasn't because they didn't care, but they had their own projects they were working on. So my goal was to one, of course, make the improvements for our customers, but also ensure we were able to drive that improvement with the help of the teams internal to Redbubble. And what I did is I went out, I had the money in my budget allocated. I went out and found a partner called Lovestock and Leaf. They're based in Melbourne, Australia, and they did all the heavy lifting for us. So they did all the code writing. They wrote all the improvements that we wanted to make on the Help Center. They're specialists with Zendesk. In fact, they're right down the road from Zendesk and our Melbourne office. And the only thing our engineering team had to do was one product manager, one engineering manager oversaw the work and ensured that all the coding and every improvement change we were making was not going to have a negative impact on our website or, cause any delays to the site experience. And I just made sure that this was an easy way to say yes. So I took the burden of the budget and finding the partner and doing all the heavy lifting. And then I partnered with our internal resources to make sure that there was no negative impact to, obviously, the website or the business. But my goal was to make it easy for them to say, yes, they would help us. And we still actually partner with Lovestock today. And we still use Zendesk, so it's been working for us. I really, really love this quote. And, of course, Buddha's amazing. But listening to this and even reading it to yourself and thinking about it out loud, do not learn how to react, learn how to respond. And for me, at least, I know when I know where I'm going or what I'm trying to achieve and I'm clear on what the goals and the goals of others I'm working with, it's a lot easier to take a step back, integrate feedback or redirects, manage obstacles or somebody saying that can't be done. And instead of mentally, panicking or emotionally reacting to the situation and being frustrated, it's really allowed me, since I know where I'm headed and kind of have my eyes on the prize, so to speak, it's really allowed me to stay focused and maneuver. And sometimes I've ended up, and my team, we've ended up in better places because we weren't so focused on a set path. It's really about getting to the end. But sometimes having that flexibility to get there allows you to have a much more robust and collaborative and long-term plan.
So Melissa, we are running short on time. Our 30 minutes is just about up. So are there any final thoughts or advice that you'd like to give before we wrap up?
I think just real quickly, remembering it's about customer service and the end-to-end experience and being able to partner across multiple teams to get there, and be very mindful about vocabulary. Words matter and they shape your culture. So be really specific and selective about the stories you're trying to create. And it's really ultimately about connection. So my advice is to lead with love over fear and to create a connection over disconnection.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. I will do one very quick. We got several questions, so any that we don't get to, we'll go ahead and follow up via email. But I will go ahead and ask one before we wrap up, and that's any challenges that you've encountered when moving into the digital space, and how did you address those challenges?
Oh, well, I think, you know, that I would say it really goes back to the same thing. And the challenges are going to be understanding what you need today and where you need to scale for the future, and being able to invest in the right technology that will allow you to scale without having to dismantle and start over again. So, you know, I think going back to some of those experiences of interviewing the technology opportunities you have in partners and really understanding what can they do for you today, and are they equipped to pull you along and bring you into the future. And I have been really fortunate because the companies we work with also allow us to provide input to their roadmaps. So when we have a need, we're able to provide input based on what I know our customers need, but also the experience. And it's been beneficial also for their own roadmap and customer base. So I think it goes back to understanding what are your resources, how much capital do you have to spend, and what is it that you're trying to achieve, and how much time do you have. But I would advise, don't go too big, but go big enough that you don't have to redirect or dismantle technology because you've grown faster than the system you're using.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. So we are about out of time. Just a quick reminder to download our resources and watch our other webinars on demand available in the resource window to the right of your screen. And once again, a big thank you to you, Melissa, for your valuable insights and for your time today. And for everybody else, have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.